which I'm hoping we are. It says on my screen we are. Welcome to Rachael Blok. And we're also waiting for Ruth Ware, who I just sent a message to, saying, what do I have to do? Oh, yes, I've just found your instructions. And now we're waiting for her to appear. I've told her to call me anytime. So if my phone goes at any time, that'll be because that's Ruth Ware trying to get in and talk to us. And hopefully she'll be contrite. But Rachael Blok is here to talk about, and I want to try and get this on screen. I've got these fancy things. She's just involved in this new anthology of crime fiction that's published today. So congratulations, firstly, that you're publishing today, and you and your fellow writers. Tell us what Afraid of the Light is first.
So it's a collection of crime stories, short stories, so maximum 3,000 words. And we had a quotation, which was about men being afraid of the light. So we all kind of wrote a story based on the theme, but we really wanted to do it because of the lockdown and because of the isolation. We just thought, what can we do to try and raise some money? Mental health is so fragile at the moment. They were saying that I think that it's 50% increased of loneliness in a recent survey. So we're just really hoping that we can raise some money. And then all proceeds are going to the Samaritans.
That's amazing, because you managed to pull this book together. Or was it something you were already thinking about beforehand, or have you? Hold on, I've just seen a message. Ruth Ware is ready to join our broadcast.
Yay.
She'll be popping in any second. There you go. Welcome, Ruth.
Hello. Sorry about that. I had terrible trouble logging in. It was asking for authentication codes and all sorts for some reason, but I'm here now.
Yeah, well, it just proves how live this is and how very, very like medium. Because we're here. I was talking to Rachael a little about this anthology that she's part of putting together called Afraid of the Light, which is a crime writer anthology coming out today. Proceeds going to the Samaritans, and I'm just amazed that you seem to put it together in a relatively short space of time. How did it happen?
Well, we've been talking about doing something for charity for a while, and so we'd all kind of had to think about stories, but we've had a few weeks and we could see what was coming with Italy, etc. So we thought, let's just get going on it. It has been a bit of a scramble, but we're really proud that it's out and that it's available to buy. So no, we're really pleased with it.
I love that idea, because we work in a world where books seem to take about a year before anything happens to them. You send them away and they're sitting in piles and people are reading them and coming back. And actually, of course, there's no reason why you can't get a book out when you need to. And I just love the fact that that's happened. And it's out in ebook now. Is there a paperback version coming out as well?
Yeah, you can buy a paperback. So it's on Amazon. So you can click on paperback and that arrives in a few weeks. And the ebook's available as of today. I think we were really lucky because we didn't have an editor. And the whole process, because we were all with different agents, so we all did it ourselves, that we edited each other's work and kind of skipped through that whole process that I think, the professional process, but we like to think we've done a professional job. Well,
an editor, curiously enough, I think you might know, has just said, can't wait to read the editor. Just after you said it was great because we didn't have an editor. So I think that's probably not in the way you meant.
No, I just meant slowing it all down. We didn't have to go through a big, long, usual procedure. But no, we're really lucky. I know, I can see my editor is there on screen, yeah.
Welcome, Ruth. Anyway, thanks so much. I'm going to move that cover out the way because otherwise everything goes in. You've got a sort of caption that hits your head.
I can't see that. My view is obviously different to everyone else.
Are you above the caption now? Yeah. But welcome and congratulations. How are you finding lockdown and writing, Ruth?
Well, on the one hand, surprisingly easy, because I'm sure, all other people who work from home are finding the same thing, that for us, it's basically just like, same old, same old. Like my normal life is basically a three-way shuttle between my office, Waitrose and the school gates. So all I've done is basically cut out one corner of the shuffle, and now I just go backwards and forwards from the supermarket. But on the other hand, of course, I'm not used to having all these people around the house, and like other parents, I'm trying to homeschool and provide 3 meals a day and make sure everyone gets some exercise, all around desperately trying to do some work. So yeah, I am feeling everyone else's pain.
It is a strange thing, isn't it? Where you're so used to being in the room on your own. I keep saying this, the cat is freaked out here because for a house on its own, and there's people everywhere.
Our cats are just so happy. They're just like, right, this is the new normal. We don't want this to change now. We'd like constant food, constant attention, and 24/7 human company. So yeah.
Which, just quickly on the theme, you know, like back on the anthology briefly, because I forgot to say, I've put the link. It's 99p on Amazon right now. Am I right,
Yeah,
Rachel?
Kindle's 99p. Yeah.
What a bargain.
I put the link. I know it's a steal. I put the link in the comments. So if you're watching this on Facebook, all you have to do is scroll up or scroll down, because the comments are impossible to unravel currently on Facebook. Find that, click it, and buy. Yesterday we had MK Hill on, and he said he had the best ever Kindle sale since January coming on.
Amazing.
I'm not sure the baseline is particularly high with Mark, but you know. But anyway, sorry, Ruth. Now your current book. Let me go and do this and shuffle around, because you're, you know, the
I have a copy here. I don't know.
Look, I have a copy there.
Oh, look at that! It's beautiful. Yeah.
The Turn of the Key, but very good marks for having it ready to show, and also being able to get it into the middle of the screen, which is the other thing that
I did have to do a little bit of shuffling around.
But another brilliant book, and it's also, I just think, the whole body of work you've got now, Ruth, that sort of says, that really strings people's love of books from the past and mysteries from the past, and takes them and constructs this whole sort of new type of writing that is sort of referential to that, but actually creates something new out of it, which is, I mean, with even the title of The Turn of the Key kind of nods backwards.
Yeah.
Do you mind being discussed in terms of those sort of Du Maurier and Christie sort of writers?
God, no, it's an enormous compliment. I was just about to say, what an amazing, you know, introduction. And do you mind if I just quote you on that forever on? I very much draw inspiration from all of those writers. You know, that I grew up reading Christie and discovered Du Maurier in my teens, and, you know, like most people, devoured Rebecca as a teenager, and then went back to it in my 30s and discovered it was like one of the most chilling portraits of a marital gaslighting I'd ever read, and sort of did this kind of complete 360 from thinking it was this wonderful romantic story to being like, oh my God. So no, all of those authors are absolutely in the DNA of my work. So yeah, I take it as a big compliment.
And when I mean, like, I know with Mrs. Westaway was a very house-based thing. This is The Turn of the Key is another great sort of house in the Highlands, which is, you know, a house in which you can be thoroughly spooked out. Do you ever research that, or is it all in your head? Do you go to funny old houses and test the creakiness of the floorboards?
I mean, I don't research it. I don't go around thinking, gosh, you know, must find a scary house to kind of, you know, wander around the countryside looking for nightmarish dwellings. But I think I'm a kind of magpie writer. Like, I hold stuff in the back of my head, and it can take a really long time to, you know, to find the right book for it. And like the Lying Game, which it's set in a tide mill, that was a place that I'd visited on holiday years before, and thought at the time, God, you know, this would be an amazing place to set a book. And none of the books that I was writing were quite right for it. So it's sort of been there, kind of in the wings, waiting for the moment where I went, now is the right book. And The Turn of the Key is definitely not based on a real house. But, you know, we've all had those moments in hotel rooms where it's been designed for someone much more technologically minded than us, and there's sort of panels and weird switches, and, you know, eventually you can't find a way to turn out those weird lights near the skirting board, so you just go to bed and pile up all the jumpers against them. And so I think it was channeling, for anyone who hasn't read it, that probably doesn't make sense otherwise. It's a very beautiful Victorian hunting lodge that has been kind of renovated to within an inch of its life, and is now this kind of all mod con smart house where everything is controlled by an app, and you have to, you know, turn things on and off by panels and things. So yeah, it was fun. It was fun creating it, but thank God, no, it's not a real house.
Which is deeply sinister in itself, actually, isn't it? That whole idea of everybody watching rooms and stuff like that. I want to sort of just say hello to a few people here, because we've got quite a few good regulars. Hi, Keith. Hi, Timea. Hi, Sven, who's very happy, clearly, that we name checked Agatha, because he's really big on that. Hi, Domenica, Ellie. too many names, actually.
I know, I'm reading all the happy birthday to Ian Rankin.
Mm.
Are we going to sing him?
We're not going to sing it. I'm sorry.
Happy birthday, Ian, but no singing.
Has anybody tried singing Happy Birthday on Zoom? It is just horrible. It's the worst noise in the world. It doesn't work. Hello, Sarah Vaughan, who's going to be coming on in a little while, in a few days, I think. Susan Baines, Joanne Robinson, who says the anthology is brilliant. Everybody needs to buy it now. Well done to Rachel and everybody involved. Yes, well done indeed. I think
Thank you. Do go and buy it.
Normally, Rachel, your second book's out this year. Your first was out last year. You started a procedural series, crime procedural series with sort of psychological overtones, set in St Albans.
Yes.
Now, I don't think, as far as I know, anybody else has claimed St Albans yet for Dastardly Deeds, have they?
No, I think I'm the first to do the police procedural series there. There are books that kind of base there and reference St Albans, but I love St Albans. It's beautiful. So I'm setting all of them there. There's 4 books in total. So the third one, in theory, was out this November, but actually I think due to lockdown, it will be postponed till next year. But yeah, all 4 of them set in St Albans.
The current one's The Scorched Earth, which is out in ebook. And presumably, I'm going to hide it. I was just showing it briefly because it's a bit hard with 4 people, because at the moment I've completely covered up Ruth's face with... That's
okay. I could go and have a tea break.
no, stay there.
I was just admiring your whizzy technological changing of the screens. I don't know how to do that. So.
No, I wouldn't have a clue.
I like my any technological wizardry being admired. But exasperating, presumably you had it was going to be out this summer, presumably, as a paperback. Like everything else, it's gone back.
Yes, I mean, I think it's just out of everyone's control, isn't it? It's so difficult to anticipate what actually will happen. So the hardback was out in November, and then the paperback would be out in June, and in theory now it's out in October, and fingers crossed that will go ahead, but that does depend on when lockdown ends and when everyone can go back to work. I think quite a lot of the publishers have been furloughed, so it's just a tricky time, isn't it? Really tricky.
It really is. I'm beginning to wonder what happens with the car crash that happens then in sort of after September, because they've got all these books they've got to publish.
Yeah,
that's going to be quite hard. I'm not sure. Anyway, we'll cross that particular. It's a relatively small problem considering what's going on at the moment. But anyway, are you? I mean, the interesting thing about St Albans, and I tell you this, I went to a book group in Harpenden, which is very close, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I met a librarian there, and they said there are 100 book groups in Harpenden. That's my cat. Could you hear that? Really? But I think there's that whole sort of, people read a lot in that sort of, like, we're not quite in London, but we're not, we kind of miss it. We want some cultural things. Seems to be loads of book groups and stuff around that area. Is that?
I've been really lucky. They invite me along to them, and I go along, and I have a glass of prosecco or a cup of tea, depending on what's on offer. And we talk about the book, and then I disappear after about an hour and a half when they want to gossip about whatever they want to gossip about. But no, it's good fun. It's really nice. There's a really big readership, lots of support. It's lovely.
Ruth, now I want to talk a bit about unreliable narratives, because I think you've done something quite clever in The Turn of the Key. There's a kind of signal unreliable narrator, isn't it? Because I mean, there's a lot of unreliable narration around, but you kind of know from the start that you're facing an unreliable. It's also it's a sort of, rather than anything that's sort of hidden under a thing for you to discover, it's kind of there in plain sight, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I had done a few unreliable narrators before, and I read a lot of crime and a lot of psychological thrillers, and obviously, unreliable narrators are such a staple of the genre, and people are so creative about the different ways that they're unreliable, and it makes it kind of really hard to reinvent the wheel, because on the one hand, it wouldn't be much of a book if your characters gave away all their secrets on page 1. But on the other hand, there are only so many ways that someone can kind of twist the truth. And so I was sort of thinking, I'd really like to do someone who's an unreliable narrator, but in a slightly different way. But how do I kind of do that? And in the end, after much cudgelling of my brains. The book's structured as a set of letters from my narrator to her lawyer, or rather to the man that she hopes will become her lawyer. So at the beginning of the book, she's in prison. She's on remand for the death of a child in her care. She's a nanny. And she blames her existing solicitor for kind of getting her into this situation. So she's writing to this lawyer that she's heard kind of touted around the prison as being the guy that you go to when you're a no-hope case. And she's trying to persuade him to take her on. So exactly as you say, she is like, she's completely upfront from the beginning that she's setting out to make a case. So she's unreliable, but you know she's unreliable, and you know exactly how she's unreliable. You know, she says from page 1 that she's going to withhold information that doesn't suit her, that she's telling the truth, she's not going to tell any lies, but she's going to present it in a way that makes him want to take her on as a client. And like on the second page, she says, you know, my name is, and then she says, I stopped because I know if I tell you who I am, you might put the letter down. So that was kind of fun to sort of play around a little bit with people's expectations and do something a little bit, more upfront.
Yeah, but also a great form of tension, because the reader has to work all the way through to work out, is this right or is this not? Anyway, which is lovely.
I hope so. And I hope I play fair with the reader, because as a writer, you know, you want to kind of, you have a contract, I think, with your readers, and as a reader there's nothing more frustrating than when you get to the end of the book and there's something completely left field that you couldn't possibly have known, like a suspect who was never introduced or mentioned or hinted at. And so I hope that however much my character withholds, she tells enough that you should be able to put it together.
Now, I want to say hello to Caroline as well, who's been a regular, and she's also been drawing. Drawings. This is yesterday's edition. That's me on the left, as you can see, perfectly rendered with my glasses there.
That's brilliant. I love it.
So you may well be drawn. Thanks, Caroline. It's just lovely. I like the way that it was despair and deep psychological worry yesterday. We haven't quite touched there yet today.
Maybe we can be more cheerful, Rachel.
It's Mark Hill. I'm sorry, Mark Hill, lovely man. Quite dour, isn't he? You know, unless after a few drinks, he's a different man. But anyway,
maybe that's what we need. We'll just crack out the wine. Just start.
I timed this whole thing at the wrong time. 4 o'clock is the wrong. It's too early. I'm still on tea myself.
A little top up. You have a little, you know, little nip in the cup.
I wanted to ask you as well. Rachel, you know, there's Ruth doing, you know, standalones, but you've opted for a series, and so you create a character, and you've got this character, Martin Jansen.
Yeah.
Dutch.
Yes. Yeah.
Are you Dutch at all? Is there some Dutch in Blok as a name?
My husband is half Dutch, so my father-in-law is Dutch. So, and my first kind of love boyfriend at university was Dutch. So I've got a kind of a fondness for the Dutch. So yeah.
So tell me how you know, I mean, it's really hard, I think, working out protagonists for series when you might know you might be writing loads of them. Well, you will be, obviously.
Yeah.
How successful they've been. In fact, I think we've sold at least one today. And so tell me how the process about how you found Martin.
So I like to write with at least two voices. So Martin is my kind of sensible outsider voice. And then I also have the perspective of the person who's involved in the crime. And that's my kind of psychological, kind of askew, chaotic voice, that you get the kind of insider view. So I started, my first book is Under the Ice, and I started writing about a woman who just had a baby and how chaotic she felt, and she felt sleep deprived, and she was drawn to the park in St Albans, and she was walking in the snow in the middle of the night, and she didn't know what was going on. And then I needed Martin to come and balance that out, to kind of give me the police procedural side, so he can unpick it and she can tell it. And then the Scorched Earth, I've used 4 voices. So one's actually in prison. One is the voice of the victim, who's actually, so he's dead, so his storyline's in the past. And then I have Martin being very sensible, and then another girl who's at the heart of it. So I kind of try to do the psychological element and the police procedural, and tell the story from different points of view.
Brilliant. That's great. We seem to have lost Ruth. I think either she's gone off for that drink. That was probably
Yeah, cup of tea.
or she'll be trying to reconnect. But in terms of setting out on that, I mean, like, do you have an idea when you're writing the first one of the second, third, fourth books at all, or did that?
No.
Doing it? Did you know you were writing a series?
I know what's happening now because I had to pitch for 3 and 4, so I wrote synopses for them. So that made it easier having to do it. But I had no idea about the second one and when I wrote the first one. And whilst I know vaguely what's happening in the fourth one, the third one is the one I'm writing at the moment, and that's where my head's at. So these things change.
Andy Hill says the Dutch are coming. Van der Valk is back after all.
Yes, we watched that the other night. It was brilliant.
Was it any good? Because, you know, I was a big fan of the original books, and I always thought the Ruth just said my computer just crashed.
Oh no!
It was way too exciting for her. We're breaking the internet in new ways. She says she's coming back as soon as she can, but we've got plenty to talk about without Ruth. Yeah. So you move from winter in the first.
Yes.
And then you have seasonal changes. Oh, Leslie Thompson has just said the very same thing. Very good, Leslie. And of course, I should say we'll be launching Leslie's new book here on May the 7th.
Is that The Death of a Mermaid? I love that book.
We are, exactly. I mean, it's a brilliant book.
Brilliant. I've read it. It was lovely.
So on May the 7th, this just becomes a Leslie Thompson show, basically. I'll just message Ruth just to know that we are expecting her and we'll be docking her pay by all the minutes she's absented us. So how does it feel at this sort of stage, being in lockdown and being a writer, and also having these books sort of in hiatus in a weird way? I mean, you get all geared up for a summer launch, and now it's somehow in the autumn.
I know, it's strange, isn't it? I think we just roll with it. So hopefully the books will just last. So we just can't worry about that. And being in lockdown is strange because I'm supposed to be writing and editing, but I'm also running homeschool for 2 children who are both at primary school, who are currently in the other room watching a movie and have promised to just be quiet for about an hour. And my husband's upstairs on a conference call. So it's not as it would normally be.
I love the fact that people think that writers are somehow got nothing else to do at the moment. Yeah. And it's, I think we've got Ruth knocking on the door. Let me just scoop the cursor across it. It's actually a really strange little interface to let people in. Here she is. Oh, here she is.
Yay!
I'm back. I'm sorry. I'm trying it in Safari. I had it in Chrome, and I think my computer just couldn't cope. So
that's really weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
well,
I'm here.
Now, you've obviously been, there's something of Ruth Ware's that I want to show that's been around here, which is great.
Sounds a bit.
You posted this on Twitter, and it's probably very, very small on anybody's screens, but if I were you, I might try and stick it in the things, but it's a little quiz, and they're all books, crime books.
Or films. There's a few films.
Or films, that's true. In fact, I did really badly, but actually could get number 3, which is a film. I did appallingly. And I could get number 11 really easily.
Number 7, I got number 7 straight away. That's the
only
one
that
that jumped.
Yeah, I got that too.
Number 15 is the one that stumped everybody. That's my Meister work. I was so proud of that one when it came to me.
Which one was it? Number
15. Peach Wind Gasp.
Of course. Yeah, it's a great novel.
Yeah, great film actually, but yeah. Now I have a weekly pub quiz with my friends, and everybody is the quizmeister each week on Zoom, obviously, as we conduct our lives nowadays. And this week was my turn to set the question, so of course I had to do a crime quiz. So this was the emoji round. Yeah, guess the crime and/or thriller novel and/or film.
It's lovely. I'll stick that in the comments section as well if I can steal your copyright.
No, you do.
It's well worth time. If anybody answers any of them, please you can stick that. There's something else I want to show you as well, because this is the first time I've been talking to 2 authors who've absolutely failed in the basic task of being interviewed on a Zoom type platform. Where's your bookshelves?
Oh, I know. I have bookshelves. Yeah, bookcase credibility.
It's a new. Sarah Hillary tweeted this morning, and It was great. There's a whole thing called Bookcase Credibility, and it on Twitter, and it's just all the things that we all the books we expose behind us. And
when I stream from my office, it is in front of a bookcase, but the problem is that I'm now competing for bandwidth with the entire rest of my household, who are all, you know, streaming on Discord, Zoom, everything. So I have to be closer to the router now to get a reliable connection.
Well, I've lost my office completely. We have a bit of a fight every now and again, but I'm currently really losing badly. So I haven't been in there for about a week.
Oh,
yeah, I move around the house periodically just to get away from people. I'm just, you know, I'm like the cat. I'm finding it very trying.
yeah.
So I reckon number 6 is Knives Out.
Correct. Yes.
Top of the class then. I was asking people the other day, yesterday, if there's anything that they've decided to learn, or but any self-improvement you've tried to do in this period when you can't do many other things.
I am a strong advocate for let's call it self-care would be the polite what I actually mean is doing as little as possible and simply maintaining your sanity during this very trying time, because I think the thing about these things is there was some guy on Twitter the other day who was like, you know, if you don't come out of this with a new novel or you know, your side hustle, blah blah blah, then you never lacked the time, you just lacked the discipline. And I thought this presupposes that we're all living in this ideal existence where the lockdown has provided us with endless amounts of time and money and opportunities, and you know, for most of us that is not the case. No,
and I love the people who sort of get in touch with you because you've got nothing else to do. Could you do this? You know, like spend 3 hours of your life
aside from cooking 3 meals a day, educating my children.
The cooking, honestly, the cooking is unbelievable. I've never done so much.
I'm so bored by my own food. I just want to go out to the pub.
Yes, I do want to go out to the pub, actually. Not complete dipsomaniac, I am, but I do miss that kind of, you know, it's lovely socializing with people, but, you know, the trouble with this format is suddenly people's computers crash and they disappear.
Yeah. And it's just not the same. Like, you know, no one's going to come over to you with a delicious cool glass of white wine and a plate of chips, are they? Unless you make it yourself. So.
No, sadly not. I mean, I was wondering how you could do that virtually, where I said we could actually arrange with various writers to actually have a bottle of the same wine and glass, and you all just pour window.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, Barry's polished some boots. I'm proud of you, Barry. The reason I said this because I actually knitted a hat, which I can't find.
Well done.
But somebody had asked me to. It's gone. Susan asked, who's been watching it, had asked me to show it today.
Oh, maybe the cat's taken it.
Yeah.
That bastard cat. Oh God, it was here. Anyway. It's a really huge hat. It's way too big for me. But how's about yourself, Rachel? Have you learnt any foreign languages?
So we obviously intended to learn something, and we failed dramatically on the foreign language front very early on. But when the weather was nice to get the kids outside, we've taken up basketball. So I ordered basketball, then had to order 2 because they were fighting over whose turn it was to shoot the hoop. And we've been in the garden, and I have to say, I'm pretty good now.
We tried to do this, but we have a very slopey garden, which makes it very high risk because you either get it in and get the ball back, or you miss and you've got to run down the bottom of the garden, retrieve the ball and run back up again. So
Leslie Thompson just pointed out that my clock is wrong. Yeah, I think it probably is, isn't it? Yeah, sorry about that. It's amazing it's going at all, actually.
It's heading for G&T time.
Yeah, it's 7:15 according to your clock. We could all be on the wine by that time. Yeah.
Don't see why not.
Now, I'm going to attempt to put another cover in the screen again here now. You've got your books already out for next year, one by one, Ruth.
Yes.
Already up on the sale site.
Coming out this autumn, allegedly.
Oh, yeah, this autumn, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's coming out in September in the US and November in the UK. Yeah.
And again, a classic sort of, and everybody says locked rooms. You're not strictly locked rooms in your books, but there's a claustrophobic setting, isn't
A
it?
closed cast of characters in a claustrophobic setting. Yes, definitely.
Right.
It's set in a corporate retreat in the French Alps. This was before we discovered that, skiing was the perfect medium for spreading pandemic diseases, which is enough reason not to go skiing, quite frankly. But my book gives you several more reasons not to go skiing. So yeah, the characters have gone on this corporate retreat to try and thresh out this very complicated takeover bid, and then they start getting murdered one by one. So yeah.
Hence the title.
Hence the title. Yeah.
And the next in your series, you mentioned the title earlier there, Rachel. What's that?
So Into the Fire is the third one in the Martin Jansen series in St Albans, and that is set at Halloween in autumn, kind of end of autumn, and it was due out in November, but obviously now I think we're looking at February next year. But yeah, and that is very, I've gone back to the kind of house. So it's a house, it's a weekend party. It's corporate too, actually. There's they're processing a deal, and it's a celebration. It's like the signing weekend, and then terrible things start to occur in the house. But I'm a huge fan of Agatha Christie and a huge fan of Ruth. I've read all of your books, Ruth. They're brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
I love Turn of the Key. We did the locked room together in Harrogate last year.
Yeah.
And I got my copy early, so I kind of went home and read it on the train on the way home and loved it. It's brilliant. But I love locked room settings. I love that idea of it can be no one else and it's got to be someone in the house. And I think the challenge was how to keep the police procedural element out of it slightly, so you could let the events unfold before you bring the police element in it too early. I quite like the idea of things festering for a while first, which is a bit different to the first two. So that was my writing challenge.
Like that. And you also did the Curtis Brown Creative course, Rachel.
Yeah, loved it. It was brilliant.
Did you? I mean, I'm always wondering, because I do some of the work on that course myself, teaching on it, mentoring on it, and I often wonder. I really struggle with working out how on earth you teach people to write, because it's something that it's such a weird idea, isn't it? You know what I mean? In some ways, you can help people along, but you've got to kind of be a writer before you can be taught to write. It's quite a weird thing. But did you ever have to do that? I mean, you were working in publishing anyway, weren't you, Ruth? So did you ever actually stop and actually think, oh, I've got to work out how to learn to write?
Well, it's my dirty secret is that I've never taken a creative writing course, or in fact really read a creative writing book. I have read Stephen King's On Writing, which is the only book of that ilk I've ever read, and is wonderful, but more of a memoir, actually. It's more about sort of how he writes, although it has some practical tips. But I really struggle with this, because I get asked to lecture on stuff, and not only do I not have a clue how I do it, let alone how to tell other people how to do it, I also find it so difficult because, I've never been taught. So you learn how to do stuff by watching other people do it. And because I've never done a creative writing course, I don't know. Yeah, I really struggle with it. But so did you feel it I always worry that if I think about something too much, I'll stop being able to do it. But did you not find that, Rachel, that it was sort of more instinctive? Or
so I was halfway through. So the Curtis Brown course, you go onto the course with a novel in progress, and I think part of it is learning to believe that it could be real. So I think when you do your own writing, before you really take it seriously, it's almost like a dirty secret that you sit at home and you kind of scribble away, and you dare believe in yourself. And then suddenly you're sat around a table with 15 people and you have to stand up and read your work to a room. There's nothing more kind of sharpening, I think, to kind of hearing it. And then suddenly you have to take it seriously. And I think for me, it wasn't so much how to write, it was how to edit. And that's really what I took away from it, was how to look critically at it. I think it's Stephen King, I can't remember, who talks about writing for yourself first, and then you write for the reader when you edit. So first of all, you write with a closed door, and then you edit with an open door. And that's really what really helped me, was actually how to edit what I was doing. I think the writing will come from you and me and writers, but the editing, I think, it's kind of almost 50% of it, isn't it?
I definitely agree. Editing can be taught. Yeah. And actually that I did learn. I went online and joined an online creative writing group because I had very small children at the time, so couldn't kind of take the time out to do it in person. And it weirdly, it wasn't so much other people's comments on my work. It was critiquing other people's work that really taught me how to do it. And because there's nothing like seeing a mistake or a kind of, not a mistake exactly, but you know, something in someone else's work that isn't working and you point it out, and 9 times out of 10 you go back to your own work and you find it in there and it's stuck out at you because it's something that you do. And it wasn't until I learned to critique other people's work that I learned how to edit myself.
It's such a weird craft because you end up having, I mean, to produce a book, I know people who dash them off in a few weeks, but actually for me it's a year if I'm lucky. And that's a strange thing for an art form, isn't it? Yeah. Do you know, you spend all that time just doing one thing, and so the belief to turn it into something else, you were talking about just like to actually convince myself I was writing a novel, and I think that's it, because there's a kind of weird alchemy, isn't there, between that messy pile of pages and a published book with a cover, and even how people criticize it. You know, if you hand that messy bunch of pages to your mates, they go, it's not very good, is it? I could do that. But when it's actually comes out the other end as a book, people can believe in it, and that's all you're trying to do, isn't it? You're trying to get people to believe in this sort of strange stuff that you've made up.
Yeah.
And with great success in both of your cases. You said hastily, well, I generally try and go on for half an hour, and we've busted that by quite a bit. So I'm going to actually thank you very kindly for coming. I'm going to say as well, go and look in the comments to this and find Afraid of the Light, 99 pence. If you don't buy it,
it'd be rude not to for that price.
It would be. We want to beat Mark Hill in ebook sales. But thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on and talk about it. I apologise to Joe Furness, who had mentioned it first, and I said, "Oh, Joe, come on." Then I completely blanked that from my mind.
Well, she's contributed too, and her story's brilliant in there. It's brilliant.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. And also look out for her books. And Ruth, thank you so much for coming on twice.
Thank you for having me. It was fun both times.
And so goodbye, everybody. Thanks so much for turning up, everybody. It's been a real pleasure, and I'm going to press the off button now. Bye.
Thank you.